Hey everyone, Anthony here. Welcome back to Metals and Momentum. And today I want to talk to you about an article that I wrote called Selling Out of Physical Silver in 2026. And what I want to do is make this video for people who lost money in this recent run up in silver. I mean, I'm not talking about the people who bought at like $30, $50 and like didn't sell at, 119. You haven't really lost money because we're still much higher in terms of the physical silver price. I'll flip over to the silver chart on my screen. We're going to go through a few things, and I'll tell you a quick little story. I actually wrote an article about how the sentiment in silver when we were in this general area was pretty nuts, because I actually sold out of my physical silver at about $94 or $95, somewhere around here, and I came out with a pretty decent profit. But why did I decide to sell in this general area right here? Well, it was because of a number of things that I was looking at here, but I want to mostly just talk to those people who, bought around this peak right here and then witnessed a massive correction. And I bet a lot of those people who bought around the peak have probably sold out of physical silver, and they're probably really annoyed. And I totally understand this, and this video is not going to be to like rub it in your face whatsoever. I want to talk to you about a few things that you could actually really take away from this recent run up in physical silver. And I'll tell you a quick little story. If you go to my Substack, and there is an article under my posts here, if you scroll down, this is a part of the free tier. You can go ahead and read this. It's called Selling Out of Physical Silver in 2026. I'll post the link to this article in the description of this video. And it was I just want to talk to you about like sentiment and things like that before we really dive into some of those key indicators that I was looking at, because I think this is super important to understand, because like we go through these cycles in markets where things might not do anything for a long period of time, and silver is this type of asset for sure. It will sit and do nothing for an extended period of time, sometimes 10 years, and then absolutely explode due to some sort of catalyst or just some sort of euphoric run. Retail investors, they start to pile into this asset because they're hearing people talk about it on like Twitter or something like that. Reddit is talking about like a silver squeeze, and there's just like craziness happening in markets. And we go through these cycles where we remain dormant for long periods of time, we rise up, and when you see this peak, this should not be like exciting. Like, it shouldn't feel exciting when people are just going nuts about an asset, because on the other side of physical silver's volatility is just massive downside potential, and we can this whole physical silver run up that we've just saw recently was so predictable. And I actually have videos on my channel talking about how at 119 physical silver, $119, I was saying I actually see $71 as a price potential for the next little while. And what have we seen on the silver chart? Well, at around 119, that was close to that peak. And there were a couple indicators around the top here, especially this one right here. This is the biggest red flag of them all. And this is when I really started to say $71 silver is my price target once we saw this candle right here. And I'll go over why I actually had that price target in a little bit. I've talked about it multiple times on the channel here, but one of the key things that I really want to do in this video is just go back and tell you a little story, because in that article, it's just such a good explanation of like what happens during like the lull in silver, and then what happens during those peaks. Because when I first started buying physical silver, it was about 2015, and the price of physical silver, I actually wrote about this in the article on Substack, and I remember the very first price that I bought at was 1823. It's really etched in my mind because I went to this like small little kiosk in the mall, and I remember they had this like little monitor, and it was just lit up nice and bright. And I remember we would watch the price change all the time. But in 2015, silver was $18, and that's really when I started this whole journey into the world of finance and the world of investing. And it actually did really change my life, because the way I started to think about savings was so different compared to the past. And it was an asset that would kind of be a little bit tricky to sell out of. Like you had to put a little bit of effort to go like sell some silver, and that's exactly what I needed at that time. And I also was looking at an asset or a number of different assets that would remain dormant for like a long period of time, because that would allow me to scale into an asset over an extended period of time. And this was like the biggest blessing of it all, because I didn't have a lot of money back in 2015. I didn't have, I could only really save in like 20, 40, $50 increments. So silver was like the perfect asset for me at that time, because I would just not be able to buy these huge chunks. I didn't have much money back then. So silver did nothing from 2011 to about 2020. The world definitely woke up during the pandemic, and I watched the silver price double in just 2 years. And especially when that time period came around where there was that silver squeeze kind of movement happening. Of course, silver was in the news. People were talking about it on Reddit and things like that, but there wasn't that massive like parabolic run. So at that time, I knew the peak was not then, because we didn't see, like, when you look back historically on a silver chart, you don't see like just like a stair step and then like a massive correction after that. You generally will see a small stair step, and then you start to wobble around that kind of general area. And if you just sit through those periods, you don't necessarily see those like 40, 60% declines in the price when we're stair stepping. But when silver gets dangerous is when you start to get into these massive vertical peaks. And this is exactly what we see on the chart right here. You could just see let me even just zoom out a little while. Like especially around 2020, like, yeah, we had the big dip during COVID. I mean, everything dipped during COVID, but like you essentially do nothing for like a very long period of time. So here is 2013, you do nothing. You're just like kind of floundering around. Like here's a little stair step. Now we get to like a new almost plateau. But again, not really doing much. And then COVID hit, pandemic, we start to see all this this craziness about like silver squeeze, people talking about shortages and stuff. There was a real shortage during the COVID pandemic of silver. There was not a real shortage during this last run up. If you just go into a coin shop, or you could even order physical silver online, and you can get physical silver. Back in the pandemic, there was a real shortage, but the price didn't go into this like vertical, like crazy action or anything like that. We stair step for a little bit of time, but again, that silver squeeze movement kind of just died off. There was no massive like peak. You could probably say like, okay, there was a big run up during 2020 and such, but that was just like a recovery rally. We also had mad money printing during that period of time. Every single country in the world was just printing dollars and whatever their currency actually is. And it just made sense, right? So we reached this new plateau in physical silver, and then you get this massive run up. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about like a crazy parabolic run. When we see silver jumping 15, 20% in a day, that is like massive red flags. That should really pique your interest. And that's what we started to get. Like when we started to get to this little section right here. I'm just going to measure this out. This is an 11% move in a single day. That did not get me excited whatsoever. It actually made me more nervous than anything, which is quite funny. But I started to chart the physical silver price out a little bit, and we started to get into this I guess like an uptrend right here. So we start to chart the price of physical silver right here, and I said, let's be cautious around here, but we're still very much in an uptrend. And once we started to get that $100 price point, I knew there was going to be some resistance around here. We were either going to just smash right through it, or we were going to break down right before we hit $100. And the excitement and enthusiasm was unlike anything I've ever seen in my recent years of buying physical silver. And I want to get back to the article that I was mentioning, because it was so funny. When I went to sell my physical silver, there was a lineup out the door for the first time that I have ever seen ever. The friendly staff that is usually at the dealer that I go to, they were like visibly frustrated. That they were running around like chickens with their head cut off. It was absolute madness. For the first time ever, I waited in line to go into the store. Even though I had an appointment, that's how crazy the store was. They were frantically like trying to determine like who had an appointment when, and it was just unlike anything that I've ever experienced. And it confirmed that, now was the right time to divest of physical silver. And I was asking the staff members, like, what's it been like? And the guy who was checking me out, he was just like, he was sweating. He was getting phone calls mid like transaction, right? Like he's counting out my ounces, and he keeps having to turn his phone off and like stop it from ringing. I think he had 3 phone calls during the time that I was in the silver shop. And if I was not thinking about selling, I would have like taken this experience and gone, holy smokes. There's never been a time where I went into this physical gold or silver dealer that I normally go to, and there has never been a time where there was like 10 customers in the store. It was always just me. There might be like 2 people coming in and out. There was no line. There was never a line in the history that I've been shopping there since 2015. The staff were never super busy, like there was never just a mad dash. The one staff member when I went in to sell was getting like actually like kind of mad at the lady who was like organizing the appointments and stuff like that. He was saying things like under his breath. These people are normally very, very friendly, and they'll want to talk to you as you shop throughout the experience and buy through them. And even after you're done purchasing physical silver, they normally will hang out for like 15 minutes. They'll chat you for like 10 minutes. There was no indication that they wanted to chat after the transaction. They were going from one customer right to the next. And that is like a massive red flag. And all you had to do was just go into a physical shop, a dealer. And like one of the things that I was also noticing is people talk about this whole, shortage of physical silver, and there might be a shortage for big businesses. Like if you're looking to buy like 3 million, 5 million ounces, maybe there is a shortage. But when I went into the physical dealer, there was so much silver, probably more silver than I've actually ever seen. there's been periods where, I saw a real shortage, and like in 2020 and the early like pandemic kind of eras here in Canada, the Royal Mint actually shut down for a period of time, and there was a real shortage. When I would go in and buy at around 2022, somewhere around there, there was a real shortage, and like you couldn't be picky. Like you were like, oh, I really want a silver maple or like an American Eagle. No, there was no choice, right? Like there was like, you got like this random coin or like a random bar that was just like hand poured, and that's all they had in stock, right? Like there was no being picky in 2022 when I went and purchased. But when I went in to sell, you could get everything. Like there was like maples, eagles, there was like cool like zombie coins. Like a couple people who I know are always interested in the ones that like look a little bit more interesting. You pay slightly more premium, and after you get a couple ounces, like I had a few of those cool coins as well. But you could get pretty much anything that you wanted when you walked into there. And when I asked that guy, like, what's it been like recently? He said the weekend that I had just passed, I went in on Monday morning, like, and it was just packed. And he said the weekend was even more packed. Like it was a mad dash. And I just took that as like a confirmation signal that, this was the perfect time to sell. But there was also like, when I was also looking at the chart a few days before going in to actually sell my physical silver, one of the things that I was seeing before even getting into the shop was this volume chart. And I was looking at this, and I'll show you this on Yahoo Finance because I don't pay for TradingView, so it doesn't show me like historical volume on here. But even just going back to 2024, look at how light the volume was on silver. Like there was like very little buying. And it actually is way worse in 2012. I'll show you that in a sec. But like, look at how huge the volume is right around this area. Especially like we have these massive spikes. When silver got to 119, the volume was insane. And I'll hop over to Yahoo Finance here because I've got it pulled up. You could see the volume when we were around $100, like we're in the thousands kind of range. And I've got it pulled up here. This is 2024. So like, this is a recent history, and compare the volume. Look at this, 85, 84, 148. Here's a bigger spike, 301. Like the volume is so light that it's like non-existent on the chart. And if you go back here, like this is all readily available. This is during the silver squeeze, somewhere around like 2021, right? Volume. What's the volume? 474, 506. Most of the time, somewhere around 200, right? Like it's still super, super light. I have to zoom in. Like I have to zoom in to find how low the volume is. 230, 85. The volume here it doesn't even show up on the chart. Whereas like when you go over to TradingView, it's a little bit easier to see because it's just a better volume chart. But somewhere around here, 85K, 169. Over here, we're like even before the run up in like before the very, very peak, you're still in the 300K kind of range. Here's the biggest spike. We're over 528K, somewhere around there. The volume was just nuts. Like, it's just crazy. And this is all stuff that you could see before even stepping foot in a physical dealer. But when I got to that physical dealer, it was just confirmation. I would watch, customers come into the shop, they'd leave with physical silver. And keep in mind, when I went in, it was $95 American. So in Canada, that equated to $129. That's the price that I sold at. So we were way above $100 if you were talking about Canadian dollars. The peak in physical silver in Canadian dollars was 159, I think. And then we've dropped since then. I think it's about 104 in Canadian dollars right now. But the sentiment that I got from selling physical silver was like huge confirmation. But you didn't need to step into a physical dealer. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. You didn't need to step into the physical dealer to understand how crazy things were. You could just look at these volume charts and go, wow, like that is a huge cluster. And Yahoo Finance this is all free. This is free software that you could look at. The volume on Yahoo Finance is like non-existent, and then you get like around here, and that's when you start to get into like this shows it in like the thousands kind of range. But like TradingView, you could see it right here. You just apply an indicator to your chart here and you get the volume indicator. That was one massive red flag that I was looking at. Once we got to this candle right here, that's when I said, okay, we are at a peak right now. This is a key indicator on the chart. And then, of course, I started to say, I have a price target of $71 on physical silver. And we didn't breach this candle until right here. But even then, it was for like, I think that was like 20 minutes. And then, of course, you dip back down and everybody knows what happens after that. So that's what I was looking at those key indicators showing you the topping tail, the topping indicator, the volume was just like off the charts. It was just nuts. But now I just want to speak like to those people who are still with me here and you actually lost money. What are some of the things that you could take away from this massive run up and just like a pretty clear crash in the price of physical silver, or down like 50% right now? One of the things that you could think about is I actually think silver is going to go probably a lot higher than what it is at, especially today. So, selling out around here, this is actually probably the time where I might look to start maybe even actually making purchases. So my current price target on silver right now is about $54. That's where I would really like to make a couple purchases here. That's a great kind of point, but really in this area from 71 to 54, if we get down here and it looks like that's the direction that we're actually going, we could even see this candle. It's dipped into that area right now. I could step into some physical silver again, but one of the things that I learned from investing in physical silver very early and getting out and pretty much not at the peak, but near the peak. I think in 5 years, physical silver will be a lot higher than what it is today. But the problem with physical silver is that at some point in time, you got to sell into these crazy run-ups. Like when you see this like vertical price action, you got to think about selling, because this never has lasted in history. Like when you get these vertical movements in physical silver, it's always been met with massive corrections to the downside. When you look back in history at a historical chart of physical silver, you could see that you get these vertical movements, and that peak, it only really lasts either a day or about a week when you go back and look at the historical peaks. And you got to sell at some point throughout that peak. And we will get there once again. I truly believe like that this is not over. But we were seeing some pretty crazy euphoric highs just recently, and we're gonna see it again. But this time, the next time we break 119, oh man, it's gonna go into another parabolic kind of run. But the problem is now, you just don't know when that's going to actually happen, because I had to sit on that physical silver supply for a very, very long period of time, which was perfect for me at the time. No regrets whatsoever. I even calculated my average yearly return. And because I caught the price action as it was kind of peaking there, I still equated to a 40% gain year over year. Even though I held for 10 years and the price really didn't do much for that 10 years. But that's the power of physical silver. You go into these parabolic runs, and if you do sell, you generally recoup all that lost time that was made while it was just kind of doing nothing. And the other thing that I like about physical silver right now is I actually really like having money outside of the bank. But one of the things that I've realized, because during the period from 2015 up until like 2023, it started to become a little bit of a problem to store, because if you have accumulated somewhat of a large position in physical silver, especially when the price is low, then it becomes a little bit tricky to store. And my plan was always to sell out of physical silver and move that money to physical gold, so that way I can keep a long-term kind of storage of wealth outside of the bank. And it was so funny, because you go in with like all this physical silver, it's a huge stack, and then you come out with like a coin or like a couple coins when you convert over to gold or something like that. So the problem became, I had physical silver in like multiple locations. I don't store physical silver. I don't store physical gold at home. I don't even store it in the same city that I live in. So it's kind of difficult to go out and like source all these like little stockpiles that you put into physical silver over a period of time. And I probably will not have such a large position in physical silver. I probably just stick with gold in the coming future. But if silver gets down to a certain price, I mean, you got to throw some money at it, because like eventually we're going to have another crazy run. And it was a fun time. It was a fun time if you were a silver holder over the last little while. I bet you just had the time of your life. Even if you lost money, I bet it was still a lot of fun, you know. But the problem is with physical silver is when you get those peaks, the downside after that is not so fun. But you really got to think about when silver starts to move 15-20% in a single day, like you got to be a seller at that point in time. And I hope that's the key takeaway for the next silver run up that we experience, because it's not over. I mean, there's always going to be another trade in the metals, especially. And if you're still hanging on, even if you bought, say, like at like 50, I wouldn't be too concerned. Although it sucks that, you know, you didn't get any money out at the peak or anything like that, or anywhere near the peak, and you're sitting through this like 60% downside. I'll actually measure the decline here. So from like the very, very peak down to where we're at today is $77 American. It's a 36% decline. If we go a little bit lower, let's call it like to $60, it's a 50% haircut. That's pretty rough, right? Like you gotta think about like these, like that's a huge decline in the overall net worth. And if you're calculating, you know, it out every couple weeks or whatever it is, yeah, that's a big haircut. So the next run up in physical silver, it's gonna be wild. It's gonna be just as aggressive. But when we break like over a very, very long time, let's say the chart over an extended period of time, I'm not saying like it's gonna happen like next month or even like this year. When we get this like massive cup and handle kind of pattern. This next run is going to be nuts. We're gonna hit 119, and we'll probably get rejected off of 119, and it'll trade something like this for a little bit of time. There's the cup. It'll probably create some sort of handle, and then when we get that next breakout, it's gonna be nuts, because now 119 is the peak in physical silver. And think about how excited people were when we broke out of $54. I mean, even back when it was like COVID, people were talking about $30 as like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. Silver's at $30. Like this is a whole new level for silver, and that's exactly what happened. But when we really broke out of $54, people were excited, and even the $100 price point. That's why I was thinking there was going to be some resistance at about $100, and then of course we just smashed right through it. The following day, after breaking through $100, I was looking at this candle right here. This formed the topping tail, and that's when I said, okay, the peak's in right here. I even put out a video on the 28th, and I said, I think silver's peaked. We're going back to $71, and that price target actually turned out to be correct. So once we create this cup, we're going to get this handle, I'm sure. There's going to be some resistance. People who purchased around 119 and held all the way through this, they're going to be sellers. And you'll get this handle kind of thing form. But once we break 119, it'll be game on once again. I could see $250 silver. That's for sure. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Where do you think silver's going after we break 119? It's going to get there over the next, could be 5 years, could be 3 years. These cycles are getting a little bit more compressed over time. So just some overall thoughts to think about next time we go into this massive run up in silver. When the red flag is, you got to look at volume. And then if you can step into a physical silver and gold dealer, see what's going on. Like, get boots on the ground with these investments. See what's happening. Are people just going nuts, buying like crazy? Is there a shortage? Because you hear online there's a shortage of physical silver, but then you go into a silver dealer and they're like, they got everything under the sun. I just don't see that. And that was like a confirmation signal for me as well. When we get into these parabolic runs, take profit next time, because like I said, there will be a next time. It just means, if you're holding until that next run, it could take a while to happen. I think it's probably people are burned, right? Like on physical silver these days. And they don't want to see, 30%, 50% declines. A lot of people are not going to sit through that. And those people who saw the 30, 50% decline, they're going to be sellers, and they're not coming back for a long period of time. So this next run up is going to take time to play out, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen again. And I just want to make sure that, those who are holding are now better prepared for that next run up whenever that does come. And I hope this helps. If you want to hear more, really check out that article that I wrote, Selling Out of Physical Silver in 2026. I'll link it down below. Subscribe to the Substack. There's a free tier. There's a paid tier as well. We send out trade notifications on the paid tier. It's $9 Canadian a month. And you get trade notifications and full access to my bi-weekly report that I put out on investing. If you're really interested in that, consider joining the Substack. And like I said, there's the free tier that you can subscribe to as well. And you get these like little stories and investment thoughts like this one. And there's a whole lot of more information in this article that I didn't really touch into this, but I really wanted to talk to some of those people who lost money in physical silver in 2026 and are a little bit bummed about it. So next time that price starts to take off, you can actually come out with a profit. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Thanks so much for watching. My name's Anthony. and we'll see you in the next one.